And how do you explain me having 1,500 apartment units within 5 years with Jake? It really comes down to the mindset of understanding that that is a business, understand how to implement systems and scale and, use it as an investment, but that really is a business and understanding the scalability and the systems you need to implement to grow that business.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Welcome back to a new interesting episode. I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Today's guest is none other than Gino Barbaro, affectionately known as the Pizza Guy from his day as the owner of beloved Italian restaurant New York, Gino's Trattoria. But Gino's journey didn't stop there. In 2009, he crossed paths with Jake, and their partnership led them to dive into real estate. Fast forward to 2013, they sealed the deal on their first real estate investment and eventually had made the bold move to leave the restaurant behind and embrace a full-time role as a multifamily real estate investor. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I have a fellow chef here who has made the transition from the kitchen into real estate rather successfully. You now have your own students that you also teach how to acquire real estate, how to make sense of deals. So welcome so much to the show, Gino. And just thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks, Hannes, for having me on. I appreciate it.
So where did the shift mentally come from? From the initial chef mindset, wearing the head of a restaurant owner, being actually in the kitchen, to, okay, here's a completely different business, asset class, has something to do with investing. Where did that money mindset start?
I was fortunate to have two great parents. Both of my parents are Italian. They're both Italian immigrants. So I always had that entrepreneurial / saving / maybe scarcity mindset. So when I opened the restaurant in 1994, years ago, it was up in Putnam County. I had been working with my dad since 7 years old in the kitchen with him. I went to college. They all wanted me to get a job, go to college, that nonsense. And I worked in reinsurance accounting for a year. And I dreaded it. I was not the cubicle person. So I said, Dad, you've got your restaurant. Let's go open one up, me and Mom. And when you retire from yours, we all work together. And that's what we did. And it was awesome. The early 90s, late 90s, food preferences were different. It wasn't just this takeout, people really cared. I don't want to say they cared about the quality. It was just different. You didn't have Uber. You'd actually have to come into the restaurant, sit down, enjoy a meal, have customer service. It was different and it was great up until about 2005 and 2006 when the economy started shifting. You get into the Great Recession. My father passes away in 2007 and I'm thinking to myself, am I living his dream? Or am I living my dream? And I loved the restaurant. I loved what it signified. I loved that I was able to have a great job there. But I felt like I was on the hamster wheel every week making money, then having to start over again, feeling accomplished. I just did a daily rush. I just served 300 meals that day. Awesome. I got to start all over again tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate that my parents owned a couple of rental properties. And when it was snowing up in New York and I didn't get paid that week, guess what? Mom was collecting the rents. And I'm like, damn, another week I'm not getting paid, but she's getting paid because we own the restaurant. She owned the building and there's 3 apartments upstairs. So she's getting $4 or $5 grand a month from those rents and I ain't getting nothing because it's snowing. So that's where it really started. And in 2008, I'm like, I got to do something. This Great Recession's killing me. Everyone's making money out here except for me. I'm working harder. And I felt as if, Hannes, I was hiding in the kitchen. That's what chefs do. We like to hide in the kitchen. We don't like to get out front. I felt like as if I was hiding from myself. And when I met Jake, I'm like, Jake, we need to start creating wealth. We need to start doing something else. I've done a couple of bad deals in real estate. Let's focus on this multifamily thing. I went out, got mentorship. I got coaching. I got training and we just started buying deals together, Jake and myself, back in 2011. And 10 years later, we own over 1,800 apartment units. We're doing really well in the business. We teach it as well with the Jake and Gino education. But for me, the one thing that the restaurant business and that whole industry allowed me to do is to work really hard. It is a hard, thankless job sometimes. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of 10-hour days that you're on your feet. There's a lot of weekends. There's a lot of holidays. And that is what pushed me to look for something different because I knew that if I kept doing this, I'd be this 7-year-old who would be dying in the kitchen. And in one way, I didn't mind it because I really enjoyed it. But in another way, it didn't feel as if I had hope or I had a future that I was building. So I was torn. And when I got to be 38 years old, back then, I had 4 kids. I've got 6 kids now. I wasn't making enough money in my restaurant job to be able to have the lifestyle that I wanted and to be able to provide for my kids.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of these different emotions, especially when you're like, you want to die in the kitchen in some way, but you want to do it on your terms, and you don't want to die in the kitchen because you have to pay a mortgage to the bank or the IRS is knocking at the door. You want to do it out of the passion for service.
Yes.
And what you said in the beginning, when you were still serving customers, but you might want to do that on your terms without, being financially bottlenecked.
Yes. The word is autonomy. I think everyone who wants to have some type of happiness, read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I've been espousing the book for the last 6 months. It's all about your relationship with money, right? If you're worthy and you have self-esteem and you have self-love, then you don't care what people are paying you because you know your self-worth. I didn't have that. I didn't understand my worth at the restaurant. I didn't understand the word autonomy. What I tried to do through becoming financially free was I thought if I made more money, I'd be happier. No, the real key to financial freedom is the autonomy that it allows you. That if I don't want to get on a podcast today, I don't have to. That if I don't want to go to work today, I don't have to. I don't have to die in the kitchen. I can do something different. I can still go work in the kitchen. I can write a cookbook. I can mentor other people. I can still be in that thing, but it's my autonomy. It's the choices that I can make, the optionality that I have with my other investments that allows, and I think that delivers us that happiness that we're all desiring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Freedom, autonomy, that really rings true for me. And it's why I initially started investing in businesses, because I wanted to have that autonomy, to not show up on other people's terms. And a lot of chefs in the private industry, we have to do exactly that. We might have high 6-figure incomes, but we to 100% have to show up on our clients' terms. So what was that like for you to finally smell autonomy, smell freedom? When the first couple checks came in, real estate turned a profit for you, and you saw, like, I remember the first checks that rolled in from my real estate properties, and I was like, 1, this works. 2, I can scale this. And 3, this is where freedom rings.
For me, it was a little bit different because I had some success early on. Then I had a bunch of failures. And that first success that I had with Jake back in 2013, we bought a 25-unit property together. And I remember when we bought it, we still own that deal today. It's still generating significant cash flow today. I remember getting that first deal, and I'm like, we figured something out here. We've got something down here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I want everyone to think of this to me, this is what investing comes down to for me. We're taught in society to save for a rainy event, to save for an event. Your kids are going to college. Your kids, you're graduating, you're going to college, whatever. You're going on vacation. You're retiring. We have to save for that. My mind shift completely changed in that first deal when I decided to save to buy an asset, and I allow that asset to pay for the event. What do I mean by that? I put my money, instead of putting it into a 401k or a 529, I put it into a 25-unit deal. Now that 25-unit deal every month produces cash flow. Every month I get the cash flow and I pay off the event, my kids' college. I've put 2 kids through college on that very first deal. And I still own the deal. The deal is still appreciating. I have tax benefits. It's still producing cash flow. If I had that money into a savings vehicle, that money would have been gone. I'd have nothing left. That's why when I saw the power of investing in these kinds of assets where I'm saving money to buy that asset that will pay for the event, everything changed. And from that first deal, then there's the second deal, then there's the third deal. We're probably up to deal number 20. So every single deal I look at as the ability to be able to build a small little business from every single one of these assets. And the money that I make from there, I save it to buy the next asset.
Yes. And that's the power of compounding. But again, it's something that doesn't come natural to the human mind. Like actually a compounding, if you look at it on a chart, it's nothing that comes natural to us. So where where do you think you really shifted from understanding I go to work incrementally every day and I start from zero and I can add maybe something incrementally, to understanding the power of now owning 20 deals where wealth really starts compounding and the curve just accelerates?
From listening to all those experts like Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and T. Harv Eker and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, listening to all of them and experiencing it. It takes years to get good at something. And you're working and you're working, and you don't see that much results. And then suddenly one day something happens and you get a little incrementally better. And then maybe a couple weeks better, a little incrementally better. And that's what happened with Jake and myself. It took us 18 months to find that first deal. Now, 18 months is an eternity when you're living and working in the kitchen and you're trying to buy a deal and you don't know what's going on. We didn't have the framework, buy right, manage right, finance right. That's our process that we created. We didn't have that. But what's amazing is 3 months after that first deal, we got our second deal. And 6 months after the second deal, we got the third deal. Overnight success. No, it wasn't overnight success because before I met Jake, I was mentoring it all. So it took probably myself between 2.5 and 3 years to find that first deal with Jake. But I knew that I had a strong enough why. I knew that I was able to do it. And I knew that patience, persistence is what gets things done. We don't have what people say. We don't have a discipline problem. We have a commitment problem. And when we don't commit to something for the long term, back in 2008, I knew that I had a responsibility problem. I was blaming everybody else. I was blaming the economy. I was blaming the Bushes. I was blaming the Obamas. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that I should be blaming myself. I am where I am, stuck in the kitchen, because it's of all of my actions that I've taken. Once I understood that, to become responsible and to learn how the economy actually works and to learn how to actually create wealth. Success leaves clues. If you want to become wealthy, follow somebody who's created wealth. Don't listen to CNBC, even stock traders. They don't create wealth. They're just propaganda machines. They're just marketing machines. Go out and find people who have actually created businesses. Go out to listen to entrepreneurs who are actually doing it every day. They're all out there. Read their books. Start listening to them. And from there, that's how I think my mind shifted. I said that they can do it. I can do it. What do I need to do? Then it's putting in the hard work. And, working in a restaurant, there's a lot of hard work and you can't make excuses. So for me, I already had that instilled in me from a young age. It's work hard, but then you have to work smart. Yeah. If you're working really, really hard, but not working smart, but if you're trying to work smart without working hard, it doesn't work. And one last thing I'll say about this is, if you're working hard for your money, is your money working hard for you? That's what you have to say as you're listening to this. And if your money's not working hard for you, then you've got some work to do, because that's where I was back in 2013. I had one stream of revenue. That's it. Actually, two. I'm sorry. I had a 4-unit apartment complex with my brother. It was a 4-plex. And I had the restaurant. 2 streams. Not that it's good or bad. It is what it is. Now I've got probably 25 different streams of revenue. What did I learn? I learned that I had to put in the hard work and understand how to create wealth. So for those of you out there, if the pizza guy can do it and Jake's the drug rep, if we could figure it out, I think anybody can figure it out.
I think anybody can. It's simple, but it's not easy. And it
Very
takes
good. Yes.
the commitment, as you said, and you have to be consistent over multiple years and you have to apply yourself. And I think that's something where chefs really don't have shortage. Like, as you said, we're already used to working hard. We've already put in the hours to hone our craft, to work in the establishments we worked in. But sometimes you have to put us on the right rails. And I see that more and more. There's chefs in a similar age like yourself, where you start to have a family back then and you realize, wait, this is not getting me somewhere else. And that's when your why, when your commitment falls in place too, as you said. And
it was funny. We can make excuses, Hannes. That's the excuse. Well, I've got kids. I'm in New York. I'm working in this industry. Yes. Well, it might be, but it's an excuse ultimately, but what you're saying is chefs have the right mindset. They have the right skill set. I mean, you have to be detail oriented. You have to be a hard worker. You have to be willing to work with others. You have to be creative. I mean, these are all the things that an entrepreneur has, that an investor needs. It's just not as you're speaking. I'm like, wow, because I wrote a cookbook. I was creating physical products. I was doing online products. I was doing all of this as a chef. It was just that I couldn't expand. I didn't know how. Then I just saw this vehicle of real estate, of multifamily. And multifamily, when it comes down to it, really is an entrepreneurial venture. You think you're going out there and buying these buildings. What you're doing is you're buying businesses, and you need this scalability of those businesses. If you can understand that, and I didn't, because I had one restaurant for over 20 years. And how do you explain me having 1,500 apartment units within 5 years with Jake? It really comes down to the mindset of understanding that that is a business, understand how to implement systems and scale, and, use it as an investment. But that really is a business, and understanding the scalability and the systems you need to implement to grow that business.
So which of those parts you would say translate one-to-one? Something that you've done for your own restaurant where you're like, maybe marketing, branding, in the same way you have to build relationships. Maybe which of those parts translate directly to what you've done in the real estate world?
Wow. There are so many parts. You say it's sales and marketing. And if you want to really, you want to sell yourself as a chef, you need to market yourself. You need to create a brand. And it's the same thing in multifamily. If you want the brokers to call you, you have to create a brand. You have to become a thought leader. You have to really become an expert. You have to become an expert in that space. And it's the same thing when you're a chef. You have to understand your craft, right? You have to understand what you're trying to put together. Then there comes a detail, then actually planning your day out, making sure that things work out. And that's what most entrepreneurs who are visionaries really fail. To me, it seems as if people who are chefs or anything, they're integrators. They are visionaries, but they're integrators because they need to get the job done. And there's a lot of steps, a lot of work. There's a processes. So you're taking those systems and processes, and you have it built out for that industry. All you need to do is learn what they are in multifamily or in real estate or in stock trading, whatever that is, and implement them and build them out there. And then ultimately, I keep saying the hard work. There's going to be hard work involved. You might as well, if you're working hard as being a chef, are you building yourself? Are you building your worth? Are you building a personal brand for yourself to market yourself and to be able to monetize on the internet, for instance, on social media, for instance?
Yeah. Is that something that you used to do when you still had the restaurant? Building out a social media presence or having digital products, as you mentioned?
It's interesting. When I was making that transition, I had started a company called Gino's Family with my kids and my wife. I've got 6 children. And what I saw the genesis was I wanted to really get families around the dinner table. So I was shooting videos in my garden. I was gardening. I'm Italian. We all grow tomatoes and eggplants and peppers, and I would grow them in the garden. I would pick them and I'd bring them into the kitchen, and I'd cook them with the kids. That was my big why. That's why I really liked the restaurant. More than the chef or the title, I like to be able to feed people. I like to be creative. I liked food. We were just in Italy last month. Just being around the dinner table with the family is something special and unique. And I want other families to experience it. Then we wrote a cookbook on that. Then we started selling physical products to be working in the garden. So I saw all of that coming. I just didn't get as enamored with YouTube or as Instagram because it was about 10, 12 years ago. It had not exploded like it is now. But if you're out there as a chef, I mean, we put up a video on, we still do a lot of cooking at home. We'll put up videos on our Instagram page, the Jake and Gino page. They'll get thousands of views. I'll be talking about creating wealth, 300-400 views. I'll be talking about how to make pizza, 10,000 views. It's so well. I mean, as a chef, every time you're at an event, make sure you're taking pictures and doing a 1-minute video of whatever you're doing. Build your brand and start using that, repurposing that for marketing and for sales, because you are a personal brand. You are absolutely. Start a blog, start a YouTube page, start an Instagram page. Make sure that on Facebook, and then all of a sudden you've got all those recipes. Start putting those recipes together and start creating ebooks from them. You'd be amazed what you can do from that. Then you're saying to yourself, well, I have multiple streams of revenue. I'm going out there. I've got a little cookbook going on. I'm making some money on Instagram. I've got my weekly gigs. I've got a little blog going on. The sky is the limit, but you need to actually start by building the brand. And every single one of us listening to this, we are all unique brands on this planet.
Yeah. You know, as you were saying that, I was just thinking of one of my last guests. He's a mushroom forager, and he started a blog out of his own passion. Just like it was more for him to journal than it was to share it with the general public. He now has thousands of visitors every single day on his website, lots of traffic. He has a YouTube channel. And it's just amazing to see how what started as a hobby and a journal for himself is now serving his lifestyle. He is actually financially viable, just doing what he loves to do, going foraging in the forest and sharing that with the general public. He has published some books, and it's just beautiful to see. But it also, it took him a lot of work. Like it took him nearly a decade to get to that point. But it's a beautiful journey and see that commitment play out paired with passion.
That's awesome.
So for somebody that is a little bit intimidated by everything you just said, because it's a lot to take in for somebody who maybe just has a paycheck rolling in from their principal or their restaurant, where should they turn their attention to nurture their money mindset?
Making money and creating wealth, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that it's going to take commitment and it's going to take time. The good news is that anybody can do it. And this is what we're going to start out with. We're going to start out with $1 right here. I've got $1 here. This is what Jake and I call a baby money soldier. Every single dollar that comes into your life will dictate how you create wealth. Some of us get this dollar and we eat it all up and it's gone. Some of us get this dollar, we save it, middle class, and we save for retirement. Some of us get this dollar and we just decide to deploy it. That's the difference between the poor mindset, which totally gets rid of it and just eats it away, the middle class mindset, which saves it for a rainy day, and the wealthy mindset. Now, I've got the dollar ripped up here. Now, your baby money soldiers, some of it may go to an operating expense. You need operating expenses, right? Lifestyle, you have your rent, you have your car payments. This could be dictated by how much you're spending. You need to know how much you're spending. Then there are those, the poor mindset, that like the luxuries, the cars, the vacations, the jewelry, what do they say, the glam, the bling, whatever you say. Those, if you have that part of your baby money, so that part of your dollar that you use for luxuries, you're killing your baby money soldiers. The idea is to save as much money and to put your baby money soldiers to work so they can procreate, right? The next one, this part of your baby money soldiers is what you're going to save, and you're going to send these baby money soldiers out to fight. These baby money soldiers are going to buy deals, invest. Their idea is to take that property over, and in multifamily, like you can procreate by either selling it, getting more baby money soldiers, or refinancing it, pulling the baby money soldiers out and redeploying it, right? You got this one over here. You can't send them all out. You can't spend them. You need some baby money soldiers in reserve. Let's put these in reserve, because when something happens, we lose a job, we find another deal. We just have something happen in our lives. This dollar right here is going to help you. And I think finally, a couple more, but this one over here, this is for charity. If you want to give money to somebody, this baby money soldier is very difficult because there's no really ROI. It's more of an ROI in your life than it is an ROI in the baby money soldier. But I think you need to do that. And we have this baby money soldier here. This is all about education. This is a huge one. Most people don't spend any money on their education. I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about skills. I'm talking about going in like I did with the mentorship, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on mentorship, on education, being able to invest in myself. That's in myself. So if you want to really wrap this thing down, to create wealth, you have to understand that every dollar you have is a powerful dollar. How you deploy that dollar will ultimately make you understand how to create wealth. The more baby money soldiers you kill by your operating expenses and luxuries, the less that can go on the battlefield. The more that you can deploy, procreate, and redeploy, that's what's going to create wealth. And what you said before about the compounding interest, the reason why it takes a few years is because you want them to redeploy and reprocreate. And it was fortunate for me that the first couple of years, I still stayed at the restaurant. So all those baby money soldiers that Jake and I kept procreating, all the millions of dollars that we had refinancing, I wasn't going on vacations. I was putting those back into the next deal. Conquering over the next property, the next territory. And if you understand that at its base level, you can start out with $10, $100, $10,000. And it does not matter how much money you make in a year. If you make $6 million a year, but you're killing all of your baby money soldiers, you're not going to create wealth. If you're making $200,000 a year, but you are a steward of your baby money soldiers and you know how to direct them, it will only take you a few years to be able to understand how to play the game. And then all of a sudden you're deploying them, efficiently. And at some point, I would put the luxuries off for as long as possible, because you want that part of the money you're spending for luxuries to go into your businesses or to go into your investments so they can continue to procreate. But that's the long story of the baby money soldiers. But ultimately, that's what people will tell you. It's really about directing your future, your investments, and making sure that you're not wasting that money and actually putting that into those investments.
Yeah. And that's a tough part, especially I would say in America. where people are very used to maybe swiping the credit card one more time to have a certain experience, or a new iPhone 15 is out, or the new MacBook, the new Nikes, and where the culture is almost a little bit seductive to, be shiny and bling and be up to the latest items, whatever it is in fashion or technology. And it takes that personal discipline to be like, okay, I know what I can live a happy life with, and I know what I'm working towards. And the compounding happens on top of those factors, as you said. And, ideally, like yourself, if you are able to keep your income, whether that's a business you have or you're a private chef or you're working in a restaurant, if you have that steady discipline with your income and you keep adding that to your investments, that's when after some time, you can literally have a completely new income that's the size of your original income.
Hannes, what I would say is I would challenge everybody listening to this right now. Why is it that you're buying the new bling? And I'm not here to judge anybody, but usually what I witnessed in my life, I'm a life coach and I've spoken to hundreds of Jake and Gino students. And I ask them a lot, well, why are you buying the extra car, or why are you buying the jewelry? It really comes down to a lot of times of not enough self-love or low self-esteem, thinking that that item will provide for that. And for me, when you're starting your journey early on, you can't have experiences and create wealth at the same time. There's got to be some type of delay of gratification. I've taught all 6 of my kids this. You can't have everything at whenever you want it. That's so important to understand that. And if you can just delay the gratification, let me give you a quick story. My son was 16 years old at the time. He's into musician. He's a musician, loves to play the guitar. And he comes to me, he goes, Dad, I want to buy this new amplifier. It's $1,500. I'm like, Mike, you got $5,000 in the bank. I don't want you buying an amp for $1,500. So what is that, 30% of your net worth? And he battled me back and forth for months until he finally didn't do it. He invested that $5,000 into one of my deals. It was 2018. That $5,000 has grown to mid six-figure worth in just 5 years. We've refied deals. And I've made him understand, not spending that money today, you're going to have a lot more money spending 3 or 4 years down the road. And now it's the irony is we have a deal in the contract. And he said to me about a week ago, Dad, I'm going to buy a couple of guns. He's also into guns, right? So I said, okay. I said, we got a deal in the contract. And he's like, well, guess I'm not buying the guns, Dad, because he's got capital in the bank. He's going to put that capital work in a deal. And when that deal produces cash flow, he'll buy the guns. So that one little tweak, that one little shift in his mindset, understanding to delay that gratification, because you don't really need the amplifier. You already have 3, Michael. You don't need a 4th one. If you did need one, I could help you out, but let's delay that gratification. Let's put that money to work, because your money's not working hard for you. You're working hard for your money. Once that money starts working for you, all of a sudden, the fruits of the labor, you have that money. You can use some baby money soldiers to put into the next deal, and you can use some of those for luxury.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those important shifts. And it's something that didn't come natural to me initially. I understood that equity in businesses could give me a better upside than just trading my time basically. But also something you said earlier, somebody that earns, even if it's 7 figures or something, and they spend every dollar of what they earn, they'll still be poor. And that's something that I see a lot in the private space, whether it's private chefs, nannies, pilots, they adapt to the lifestyle of the people that they serve. So suddenly I see the nanny running around with $400 shoes. And I'm like, you're not the billionaire's wife. Like, you don't wear her shoes, at buying your own. But don't spend your 6-figure income like that. Like, be a little bit wise with it, Right now is your season to plant seeds and set yourself up so that 10 years, 15 years from now, you truly have autonomy, as you said earlier. It's almost heartbreaking sometimes to see how people that, you've lived in New York, people that make so much money just blow it all because the money mindset isn't there. So I think that anybody who starts getting their mindset wrapped around deploying those tiny money soldiers, as you put it, it just also brings a certain peace of mind for the future. It's knowing that, you own the process in a way where you don't have to show up every single day to earn the reward, but that there is a point in time where you can look into the future and be like very confident that you're in charge of the circumstances of yourself and your family.
The irony is that when you do own the process and you are financially free, it's so much easier to show up and it's so much more fun to show up because you can do what you want. That's the irony that most people struggle with. They look at rich people and go, oh, they're rich because they're happy and they have a lot of money. It has nothing to do with money. Money is the result. When you're really good at something, you just make more of it. That's the reality. And I think people need to understand that you start small. And if a nanny's wearing $400 shoes, I don't even have $400 shoes and I could buy $400 shoes. I think that's silly. I think understand the relationship you have with money. Go back into your childhood, do a deep dive of all of the thoughts and all the processes and of your self-worth and all of that, and say to yourself, why am I making these decisions? Why am I hiding in the kitchen? Why am I not taking more risk? Why am I not investing my money? Why do I need to save my money? These are things that I'm just popping up right now. And we're making these decisions unconsciously because of things that happened to us 30 and 40 years ago, of certain traumas. And not trauma doesn't have to be good, or it doesn't have to be a big, bad trauma, but it could have been something that your father said to you or that your mother said to you and that you've held on for the last 30 years. My mother always said to me, stay small. We don't need to take risks. Well, if I'd listened to her, I'd be in New York during COVID with a restaurant that's shut down. So what's more risky? Taking risks and getting into multifamily and learning the process, or actually staying small and being in New York and not living a fulfilled life? It really comes down to what your beliefs are.
Yeah. And the timing on that restaurant sale was just about perfect.
Dude, once again, luck, right? Luck. But all the work leading up to it, the process, listing the process a year before COVID, working with brokers, finding a buyer, making sure that the contract went through. They had a 1031. Then we're at the closing table. I understand that they blow up over a $5,000 little, thing in the contract. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's put $5,000 in escrow and let's just close. If I had blown that up for $5,000, the deal would not have closed because a month later, COVID shut down and we would have lost everything. So there's a lot of luck involved in life, and a lot has to do with timing, but it has a lot to do with hard work and preparing yourself and putting yourself in the right situation to succeed.
So did it always come natural to you to build a brand, to be out there, or is it something that you had to learn and where you had to get comfortable with it and find your voice, so to say?
I was very uncomfortable. I'm what you call an introvert. Like I said, I was hiding in the kitchen, washing dishes. I didn't want to be out in the front. And it's one of those things that where you get comfortable, and then you say to yourself, well, is this what God created me for? I mean, do I want to be stuck back here? I am not an unintelligent person. I have certain skills. It's upon me. I'm actually committing, in my views, I was committing a sin because I wasn't living up to my potential. I was letting my family down. And once I put the onus on myself, well, how do I get better? Getting better is learning the process. Then all of a sudden, Jake and I started a podcast 7 years ago. We wrote a book, got out of my comfort zone there. Awkwardness is an indication of learning. I've been awkward for the last 12 to 15 years of my life. Every day I'm doing something different and I'm feeling awkward. But if I'm not, then I'm understanding that I'm not learning something. And if that's how it is, if you're used to doing something, you're comfortable every day, you're not growing. You're either growing or you're regressing. I felt as if I was regressing around 2008 and 2009 because there was nothing that was exciting me. I wasn't learning anything. I was stuck. So for you to be listening to this and saying, well, I can't do that, I'm an introvert, I promise you, there's no one that was more introverted than me. I like to be by myself. I like to be in the back of the crowd. And now Jake's got me on stage singing opera in front of 700 people. We're going in front of audiences of 1,000 plus. It's something that you grow into. But just turn the camera on. Do something that's natural. You already know how to cook. Start recording yourself by just talking on cooking, and then just Google public speaking, and then go to a public speaking event and see how the public speakers do it. And then from there, maybe join Toastmasters, and then maybe get a speaking coach and maybe a communication coach. And then from there, the sky's the limit, but you just need to start. Stop making excuses. You can't create wealth and create excuses. It's either one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. You know what really helped me to get on stage? And I would sign the introvert just as much as you do. Like I was not meant originally to just be out there, but when I noticed that I can share something that I learned, something that genuinely helped me change my life circumstances, and I take that lesson and I know that I can communicate this to someone who gives me an open ear and there's a willingness to listen. and I can touch them, help them, teach them something that will in turn change their life. In those moments, I have no issue speaking in public. Like when it comes from that place of, here's something that I genuinely learned, and I know that if I reach the right person, it will help them. And that's
So what you're doing, what you're doing, Han, is, and this is important for everybody, Han is in that instance is being the guide of the story. He's not being the hero. He's not saying, hey, look at me. What he's doing is he's guiding the audience or guiding the person listening to them to tell him about his thing. And that's what great public speakers do. That's what people who write great stories do. They're not the heroes in their stories. The person listening should feel as if they're the hero, the person that's consuming the content, and the person telling the story is just guiding them through that. And that's why you feel that way, because it's a great feeling, because you're helping other people and you're impacting others' lives. And that's another one of those where people say, oh, people are just doing this to make money. No, most people that I know are doing this because they want to create impact and they want to help other people. Yeah. It's really success over significance. They want to become significant and they want to leave a legacy. And how do you do that? By helping others. And the more people you help, the more successful you'll feel, the more significance you have. And it's not just about monetizing, but it really is doing about something that you can ultimately affect others and help others.
I mean, money is all fine, but the reward of genuinely having helped somebody, like whether it's getting a new connection that got them a new job, whether it's helping them with their first investment, whether it's returning money to LPs. I always say every check from an LP, that's a dream that we fulfill. Like every LP that receives a check from us, it's like, okay, they have their own vision. Maybe they put their children through college. Maybe it's a trip for them of a lifetime or something. So I think those are all different acts of service. And that's so much more rewarding than the financial reward of any of those things.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. And there's one last point I'd like to make about all that. You may be saying to yourself, oh, well, I don't have the reach. I can't help people. And that was the problem that I had with the restaurant, is that we impacted a lot of people, but I never thought of it from that perspective. If you only impact one person, you're still impacting the rest of the world, because that one person shows up completely different to the rest of the world. And how he has or she has interactions with the rest of the world, or how he or she shows up, will be completely different. So you're not only just changing that one person, you're changing the rest of the world by affecting that one person.
Yeah. And that's especially true if you work in the private service industry, working for some of the most elite people in the world. So it's also how I like to look at the industry. It's because you serve these clients, you have like maybe a minor degree on them, level of influence, but you have a certain influence of them. And if it allows them to show up literally in the world, on the world stage in a different way, I think that's a beautiful thing to do. Mm-hmm. Well, Gino, where can people connect with you and Jake? Where can they find out more about your mastermind, your books? I know you have a lot of content, but I want to make sure that you point them to your preferred site and YouTube channel.
As Jake likes to say, the hub is jakeandgino.com. Just go to the website, jakeandgino.com. We have a podcast with my wife as well. So if you're a family out there trying to build relationships, trying to build deeper connections, I like that. I like the show a lot, because it's like my therapy for the week with my wife. I love doing podcasts with her. It's not about business, although it's really interesting how the family and how the business intersect. They're very similar. You want to run a really good family. You want to run a really good business. There's so many similar skill sets that are involved in that. Then we have the Movers and Shakers show with our students closing deals. We have a how-to every week. We have the Jake and Gino show every week. So just go to jakeandgino.com and you'll find everything there.
I like that. And one of my favorite questions that I like to wrap up with is, what do you consider a life well lived?
Playing with house money. And what I mean by that is once you've attained the financial freedom, you can do whatever you want. And most people, once they do that, it's not just retiring and traveling, right? I don't think most of us were born to work for 40 years and then say, I'm going to retire now and travel. I'd rather see somebody work till they're 30, 45, 50, whatever that looks like, then retire and continue to create impact in other people's lives, continue to put work and effort into it, but also enjoy the fruits of their labor. I don't think one has to be mutually exclusive of another. You can create a business that focuses on your lifestyle. That's what your mushroom forager did. I think he's living a life well lived because he's doing something that he truly loves. He's helping others. He's educating others, but he's also doing something that he loves, and he's not really doing it for money anymore. He's doing it more for the pure joy and for the impact.
Yeah. Which I think is, again, so much more like the money part eventually just doesn't pay the dividend that people think it does when they don't have it. And,
Yes.
And I think the real sense comes from serving family. Once you can serve more people than your family, you start kind of going wider. And at that stage, it's just a question of like, okay, how much of resources can I share with how many more people? Like how many more lives can one impact?
I agree.
Well, Gino, thank you so much for making the time. It was amazing to speak to a fellow New York City chef. You know, New York City has been quite a ride for me and probably yourself too. So it's a special place for a chef in this world. Thank you so much for making the time and sharing your money mindset and what it means to transition into real estate.
Thanks, Hannes. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.